brothers in the room. Listen to this. Akhi Ali knows about this. Listen to this carefully. So this is a comparison between Deuteronomy 27:4 with the Masoretic text and the Samaritan text. Listen to this. And you have crossed the Jordan, and when you have crossed the Jordan, set up these stones on Mount Ebal, as I commanded you today, and coat them with plaster. Masoretic reads Mount Ebal. What does the Samaritan read? And when you have crossed the Jordan, set up these stones on Mount Gerizim, as I commanded you today, and coat them with plaster. Okay, so Samaritan says Mount Ebal, and Mount Gerizim, and Masoretic says Mount Ebal. Now, what do the Christian commentators say about this? This is what they read. This is from Gill's exposition of the entire Bible commentary. Here, the Samaritan version has Gerizim instead of Ebal, which is generally thought to be a willful corruption of the Samaritans in favor of their temple built at Gerizim. Adam Clarke in his commentary reads, and have no doubt that the Jews have corrupted the text through the enmity to the Samaritans.
Yeah, these
Yeah,
points you guys
Supper.
are bringing has nothing to do with Jesus being the Son of God. Still refuted because
That
Jesus
was
died on
not
the
the
cross.
topic, you see. The topic was the scriptures which he has in his hand, are they authentic?
There are textual variants, but that does not take away from the narrative. There are no textual variants that take away from the narrative. All right, show me some. Show me something in the Gospels that says that Jesus didn't die on the cross.
You see, you say, let me see where in the manuscript says Jesus did not die. Why does that matter? This is not our claim. We are telling you that the manuscripts of the Bible has been changed. Because of that, you cannot know what the original message was. This is our claim. Now, if we go to the first century of Christianity, could you tell us how many verses of the Bible could we read and could we have today in our hands?
That was a question, Last Supper.
How many versions of the Bible?
No, how many verses of the Bible could we trace back to the first century of Christianity?
Oh, we have
The
the
same.
entire Gospel of John from the first century.
Sure. Could you name the
Okay,
manuscript which we can find it in?
no problem. No problem. We have it.
Sure.
No, you don't. All you got
Wait,
is
wait, wait, Akhi.
P52, which is
He
a
made
credit
a
card
claim,
flash.
right? Akhi Sadiq. He made a claim. The whole Gospel of John in the first
Subhanallah.
century of Christianity. So, let's suffer. While you are looking for it,
Hold on, what'd you say,
let me
Ali? You said
quote
it
you
came when? What'd you say, Ali?
first century of Christianity. I asked him how many verses of the Bible. He says the whole Gospel of John. You see, many scholars today say the Gospel of John was written in the second century. So it is impossible to show the whole Gospel of John in the first century. What is the earliest manuscript of the Gospel of John? It's P52 is the earliest what they have. C.H. Roberts in 1937, he dated between 125 and 175. It's about
Wow.
3 verses of the Bible. Later on, Nongri, about 2, 3 years ago, he went through it again to date the manuscript P52. He says third century. So P52, third century. The next manuscript of Gospel of John is P66. They said is early third century, P66. Nongri, he says fourth century. So P52,
Some say
third
second
century,
century.
P66, fourth century. So please
Second
name,
century. Six.
wait,
Some
And
please
it's
scholars
not
say
the
name
whole
us
gospel.
the first,
second.
And it's not. Make sure you make that point,
wait,
brother. That it's not the whole gospel. They don't have the whole gospel of John
no,
from the first century at all.
I'm
P52
telling
isn't
not
that
even
that's
from the
the
second
credit card
century they
size?
don't have anything. Wait, last supper, let me make my claim, then you can show your proof, you see. If we go to the book of B.C. Parker, he worked on Nestle Allen 28, He wrote the book, the text of the New Testament. He gives a whole list of the manuscripts of every book of the Bible. He gives all the papyri, all the majuscule, all the uncials, all the minuscule, all the lectionaries. They go through it all. They gave them not one letter of the Holy Bible can be traced back to the first century. Not one letter. You say the whole Gospel of John. I'm telling you, show us the comparanda, tell us the manuscript name, then you have proved your case. If you cannot, please tell us.
I'm telling you, P66 is from the second century.
I told you Brad Nongri
Okay,
in
and
his free. Everybody could read it, and I have it. If you give me 1 minute, I will put it on my PTR. He himself says, and he gives a comparenda. Do you know what a comparenda is, Last Supper? Okay. Do you know what terminus postcoem is or terminus anticoem is? Those are the methodologies they use to date a manuscript. He uses all of them and he gives other manuscripts which are dated firmly. He shows that manuscripts from early 4th century have the exact same letters. Earlier manuscripts from the 1st and 2nd century of the letters of the governance which were written in Greek does not match P66. So he says 4th century. His article is called Use and Abuse of Papyri of the New Testament. He's a New Testament scholar. He's calling it abuse when people like you call it so early. He says no. 366 at earliest date he gives 307. This is early 4th century. I will put it on my PTR for you to see.
but wait. But he said he had evidence of the full manuscript of John from the first century. Where's that at? You're supposed to bring that. You said from the first century. That's what he said. Didn't he say that? He said we got evidence. We got
That
the
is
full
what he said.
manuscript of John
Yeah,
from the
that's what
first
he
century. Yes,
said.
we need that.
Last Supper, can you please substantiate that
Bruh,
claim?
really? I was getting excited. I was
No,
really
okay, you
excited
see,
about
this is
prize
not his
running. I was
fault.
chiseling his
Wallahi,
name
it is
down
not
and
his fault. This is the fault of his pastors. This is the fault of his theologians. This is the fault of those missionaries who only attack Islam and don't teach him. Wallahi, Akhi Ahmad Ijaz had a debate with who? With Michael Brown. Michael Brown supposed to be a scholar, supposed to know it all. He made the same claim as Last Supper here, openly on air. He said, yeah, we have
Yep, I
manuscript
saw
of the
that.
first century. And he says to the people,
Yeah,
he's a
remember.
scholar. Middle of a debate. He tells people, go Google it.
He didn't think
Even the
Ejaz knew it.
scholars won't teach them.
He didn't think Brother Ejaz knew the truth, so that's probably why he said. He probably said, oh, they probably don't know what I'm saying. I'm gonna just say it anyway. Nah, we
Exactly,
know, we
Akhi.
know
And you
y'all
see,
don't have
Last Supper,
that.
and Last Supper sees a guy like that, sees Michael Brown saying that, and he thinks, oh, if he said it, must be right. But I'm telling you, the text of the New Testament by B.C. Parker is a very good book. It gives you all the statics and all the manuscript names. And if you want a better book on it, you can get Nestle Allen 28. They list all of it and they tell you what the differences are. So there are many scholarly books around, but obviously Michael Brown doesn't know it, yet they make claims.
Okay,
Last
But
Supper.
yeah,
I'd like
I
you
was
to
talking about
people
P66,
give
but it
Last
is the
Supper a
second
chance.
century. P66 is the second century. Some scholars say so. We have fair
Yes,
grounds to
they
say that
said
it's
that. They said that couple of decades ago. That is what I'm telling you. You have to update your information. Peter Getty wrote a book in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. They say that P66, 4th century. Larry Hurtado, online, you can search it up. He talks about this. Longbri, I will put it on my PTR right now. He gives a manuscript of the 4th century, and he says 4th century. So there were scholars about a couple of decades ago, like Comfort, they said 200. The other one, circa 200, they said, sure. But that information has been updated. This is what I'm telling you. 4th century,
And
not
Look
even
at this.
one.
Now,
Last
get book of
Supper's
Muslims.
Last
Let's look at this.
Supper's
If
one sec.
anyone that's in this room that is listening to Ali and the brothers give this information, go ahead and track it and see if the Muslims told you a lie. See who gave you this information that's truthful information, and see that we're not
And
being your enemies, but you attack us as your enemies and say bad things about the Prophet Muhammad, but we're the one that's giving you the truth. They
and the
lie,
and
and we're just trying to tell you that they are lying to you.
and Last Supper, your initial point was that there's a full Gospel of John in the first century, right? So do you concede that now? Because as a
Yeah, I meant second century. It was P66.
yeah,
Okay, you see
It
my
is
PTR?
assumed.
On the right, you have P66. On the left, you have Bodmer. Which one is it? 20. The left is from the 4th century. You see? So he compared, this is only one example which he gives. He goes through these Kambaranda, you see? He says the 4th century is exactly the same as P66. How he gives a second, you see there under? He gives another example of 4th century text. And he gives examples of first century text, and he says, you see, there are many differences. So P66, 4th century.
What first century text does he say that there's differences in? Because what this shows is just a progression of
Okay, let's move on. Not a
progression
problem.
of civilization.
So you
Because
concede there is not one letter of the New Testament which goes back in the first century. Do we agree on that?
no, I don't agree on that. Because
Could you name us a papyri or a manuscript or something?
if you look at this historically, it was illegal to be a Christian
oh,
in the
so there
beginning.
isn't one,
So
right? The point you made was there's a full Gospel of John in the first 100 years, right? And now you are backfooting by saying, oh, P66 or 57, whatever, is second century. That wasn't your initial claim. And you can't come and be like, oh, it was illegal to be Christian. That's a clarifying question. Is there an extant New Testament of the gospel? Sorry, excuse me. Is there an extant Gospel of John in the first 100 years? Yes or no? Hello?
Saba?
Last Supper. Is there an extant Gospel of John in the first
speaking about
century?
P66, which was the second century.
No, no, no. But I'm asking you, is there an extant Gospel of John in the first century?
He keeps on mentioning second century. That means that there isn't a
No,
first
no, no.
century
You want him to
One
extant.
answer.
second.
I want him to
One
answer the
second, Akhi
question.
Abdul.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because that's the claim that he made. He said there's a Gospel of John in first century. So I'm asking him now, in light of the discussion with Ali, is there an extant Gospel of John manuscript in its full sense,
Go
a
ahead, Last
Gospel of
Supper.
John, right?
Yeah, go ahead, Last Supper. Lastly, the question from Ronan was, can you do you have an extant manuscript of the Gospel of John from the first century? Yes or no?
I'll
No, we don't
right.
first century.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay,
Because you
fantastic.
realize, like, very big deal if you find the full Gospel of John.
He
Last
said that.
time, see my PTR if you
He
want.
said
You
that.
see, this is the
Why are
list
you
of the manuscript.
assuming that the manuscripts from the first century are not the same as the second century? Because he just admitted that there's copies from the fourth century that are same as the second. So you're saying that they're preserved over that period of time. Why are you assuming that they're not preserved over the earlier period of time
I
when
don't
the
think he
copies
said
have
that.
been preserved? Yeah, he
That's
did.
not what Brother Ali said.
Whoever was speaking, the guy with the accent, he said that the fourth century
Okay,
copies
last
were the
supper.
same.
Let's
You
go
said
step by step.
you said did you all right, is this true or false? You said that the fourth century copies are the same as P66, which is arguably from the second century. Are the fourth century copies the same as P66?
I'm telling you, P66 is from the 4th century.
Are they? Is it the same
Yeah,
as
you
the
missed
fourth
the
century?
entire point,
Look,
Last
Okay, let's
Supper.
let's
Why?
move
It's
on. You
from the
see, let's
4th
Are
move
they
on.
century.
from the second
He
century?
confused
No, it's
P52 with
not. It's not
P66.
conclusive. It's not conclusive. It's
Okay,
not.
Sure.
okay, let's
Let
move
me
on.
repeat
Let's
Brother
move
Ali's
on.
point. Let me repeat Brother Ali's point very succinctly. Hopefully, I'll try and get this right. Brother Ali, correct me if I'm wrong. What he's basically saying was originally, many decades ago, P66 was assumed to be from the second century. You are correct. That was the initial understanding from before. However, due to further research and advancements in technology, etc., and historicity and scholarship, they have come to realize only a couple of years ago, right, that they realized that it is no longer P66 cannot be substantiated to be from the second century. It is actually indeed from the fourth century, right? Early fourth century. So they changed the dating. It's no longer second, it's fourth. Do you understand that? Same manuscript. It's just different dating.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to bring the evidence, but
But let's go
no,
with
that's
that. You see,
the thing.
I
He did
accept
give you the
P66.
evidence.
He gave you the
Okay,
carbon
let's
dating,
move on.
bro.
Sure, let's move on. You see, if you see my PTR, you see a list. This is a list which Nestle Alan gives nothing, literally not one letter in the first century of Christianity, not one letter. So from the second century even, you cannot place the whole Bible in it.
Hayak, brother Ali.
When Ali Reza comes up, bro, you know there's gonna be some apocalypse coming
Some
down, bro.
fireworks, bro. Some fireworks, mashallah. And
Wallahi, this guy's next level.
whenever Brother Ali Raza comes on, we think it's going to be bonfire night, you know, guy folks night. With all these fireworks, alhamdulillah.